The final week in our look at the arts and humanities of the ancient world. Obviously, we could spend a year doing this in the ancient world. What I've given you is a sampling of the gems of these traditions, with the literary traditions as a point of departure. One of the books that you should know about as students of cultural history is Ovid's Metamorphoses. How many have heard of Ovid's Metamorphoses? How many have heard of Ovid's Metamorphoses? And why is it significant? It's significant because it is the primary vehicle of transmission of mythology from the ancient world to the modern world. We saw a little bit of that in Virgil's Aeneid, we saw a little bit of that in Homer's Iliad, but Ovid's Metamorphoses is the treasure chest of mythological traditions from the ancient world to the present. So that's why we need to take a look at it. Ovid's Metamorphoses has stories in it that are the same as the Quran, the Bible, the Torah. In fact, all of the world's major religions have a creation story, an explanation for how the cosmos got here, a creator God, the origin of humanity. And in the case of the three greatest monotheistic Western religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, an Adam and Eve human creation myth that explains how we got here and how we fell from grace, unity with divinity, falling down into the intellect and the senses to the point where we forget our connection to divinity and we begin to invent our traditions of religare, religion, to reconnect, to try to open it back up again and get a sense of what human consciousness actually is in a state of unity consciousness with divinity like Adam and Eve had, rather than the individuated struggling and suffering that we do as humans fallen from grace. Our attempts to return to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever your religious tradition, all traditions have that within it. And Ovid's Metamorphoses is the Roman version of that. And some of it was collected and written right here. Anatolia, Turkey, right here. You're sitting on the origin of these traditions. The people who wrote them, the people who distributed them, these major works of the ancient world were very much a part of Anatolian history, pre-Turkic Anatolian history. But they're part of your history. And Ovid begins the Metamorphosis. Metamorphoses, who knows what that means? Metamorphosis, to metamorpho. To change. This entire book is a collection of stories about how humans are changed by their interaction with the gods. Some of it good, and some of it not so good. But it's the history of the Greco-Roman understanding of the nature of divinity and our relationship to that. And he begins by saying, "My soul sings of metamorphoses. Since, O gods, you were the source of these bodies becoming other bodies, breathe your breath into my book of changes. May the song I sing be seamless as its way weaves from the world's beginning to our day." Of course, his day was 2,500 years, 2,000 years ago. But the issues are still the same. Why? Because human nature is still the same. We've made some progress. We now have electric lights and we drive cars. But the underlying human nature that was driving the desire to reunify with divinity and to understand the nature of our own existence is still there. And every one of us has that within us, regardless of our tradition. What I'd like to do is the same thing we've done with each session, is to give you cultural setting. Otherwise, our study of this, the people, the literature is just knowledge floating around that's interesting, but we don't really understand who did it. Again, this is a collection of objects and representations, visual art from the Metropolitan Museum in New York. And they summarize basically the stories that are within the Metamorphoses and show some of the objects and artifacts that were the product of the people who came from this time. This is what Roman art looked like in the Augustan period. Someone had this in their bedroom wall. Well, it's interesting. Why is it interesting? If you know anything about art, I don't know if you do, but now would be a good time to get some exposure to it, because art gives us a penchant into the social consciousness of the time. The themes and symbols embedded in the art tell us who the people were who lived in these times, what they valued, what they preserved, what they found essential to their daily lives. So take a look at this. Again, you don't have to read, let it be a completely visual experience. Just let the images wash over you. See what you see. Certainly the Romans preserved Greek mythology. The first thing we'd have to say. They also preserved a sense of representation of the human form. You know, Greek statuary, looks like everybody's been to the gym. Same thing, they preserved all of that. Their culture grew in the next layer over the Greeks. So they absorbed those things into their tradition. So, if you want to understand something about the cultural consciousness and you don't happen to be living in those times, read the objects. Go to a museum. Look at the themes embedded in the objects that are represented in the visual arts to get a sense of what the artistic people of that time chose to represent, because that's what was in their cultural consciousness. Then, when you study the literature, you have the idea of who they were, more so than when you started out. The literature starts to make sense. You start to make connections. You start to see the themes and symbols in one cultural tradition as being part of a network of themes and symbols connected to all global cultures in all times, in all places. And that, for me, is the driving reason for studying cultural history. Just the aesthetic experience of the objects and the music and so on is great. But the perception of an organic whole in human world cultural history is stunning. It makes it obvious that we aren't a bunch of individuals in individuated societies disconnected and having nothing to do with each other. We are very much a human species. We are interconnected. Everything we do affects each other. The themes and symbols that we use in our art forms, whether or not we lived in the same time or were ever connected in terms of distance or connection, transportation, commercial connection, they're the same. They're the same. So how does that happen? What does that suggest about the nature of human consciousness? We're all generating the same things in our own ways, trying to explain ourselves and the world and the origin of creation. What does it suggest? To me, the visual image of a tree with all branches connected to the root is significant, is a significant symbol for the understanding of world cultures and global cultural history. because in one knowledge at a glance image sums up what I think is going on in the human race, and that is that we are all connected to the same root. The same root! That's why Carl Gustav Jung, archetypes, archetypal symbols. That's what his thinking was all about. And it's no accident that there are these similarities in all cultures, in all times, in all places. It's because we're operating from the same archetypal ideas, symbols, themes. And when we go deep within and draw those to the surface and structure a novel or film or a literary work of some kind or visual arts, the themes and symbols are the same. As a cultural historian, once you begin to see that and understand that and appreciate it, you begin to become less a citizen of your own time, and your own culture, and your own place, and your own traditions, and more a citizen of the world. A universal citizen who can feel at home in any society, at any time, any place on earth, because you understand the essential, the heartbeat of human consciousness and its origins. And once those boundaries are broken, I think then, and only then, do you become fully human. I don't think we're fully human by being individuated and closed into ourselves. I think there is a universal essence within us that chooses us to seek universality. Archetype. To unify our understanding of what this cosmos is and what the human race is doing here. Because all of those things, those kinds of philosophies, are represented in the arts and humanities traditions. The highest expressions of those. People who are at a level of consciousness where they're perceiving that level of unity and representing it in visual form. This is the reason we study art, the reason we study literature, the reason we study music. On one level, it's entertainment, it's enjoyable, but to understand something more about the people who made them. So, it's fitting, I think, to start. I'm going to cover a couple of themes here, because the Metamorphoses is a big text. But I suggest you look at it. Everything we see in this class, I'm not going to give you a reading list and ask you to read everything yourself, for obvious reasons. That would be a challenge if you were first language speakers, but for second language speakers it's overwhelming. And I understand that. So I'm trying to digest this a little bit for you and give it to you in essence. As a form of knowledge and information, but as a form of inspiration. If you've never heard of these things before, fine. Maybe this will light a fire. Develop some interest in this and continue throughout the rest of your life. Presumably, that's what these classes are for, not just to throw information. It's to provide some sense of vision, some sense of inspiration for ongoing education. So as you go on in life and you explore this more, it becomes a source and medium of self-discovery. Whether or not you're an artist, whether you choose not to pick up a brush or whatever, doesn't matter. You become a philosopher of cultural history.